day 2 for the Decentralized Intelligence Hackathon. We have Giovanni from Flow, who's a smart contract engineer at Flow, to come talk about account abstraction on Flow and protocol level account abstraction on Flow. So this has been a hot topic. I'm super excited for this workshop. We've been having a lot of you ask questions in the Discord about this as well. So welcome everyone, and Giovanni, I'll hand it over to you if you want to just introduce yourself, and then let's get started.
Cool. Yeah, sounds great. Thank you. I'm Giovanni. I'm a smart contract engineer on Flow. I guess my role in general is looking at smart contract implementations, standards development, and implementations. Working really closely with the community to make sure that we have basically the contract constructs on Flow that enhance the ecosystem and make development of awesome things possible. So today, as Hardik mentioned, we're going to be talking about account abstraction, the actually being able to use an implementation of account abstraction on Flow, and a bit about the account model and the use cases that unlocks. I'll be walking you through a lot of hands-on, and that's just how I personally feel is I best learn hands-on and visually. So kind of walking through account abstraction generally, accounts on Flow, some hands-on, and then I'll try to leave some time for Q&A at a midpoint and at the end. So I guess before dipping into that, a little bit about me and my background. I got into computer science and programming generally because when I discovered crypto, I just realized that there's like this is kind of like discovering fire for me, realizing what being able to develop in general, like being able to create these structures and that are parallel to like institutions that are permissionless. And worked in Web 2 the entire time. I was looking for a job in crypto for like a year plus, and found my way on Flow about close to a year ago, a little over a year. So jumping right into it, what is account abstraction? So before we begin, I realize that account abstraction has with it like a whole ton of connotations and about its implementation. Like there's one thing for sure that our industry and the crypto industry does really well, and that's creating buzzwords that are just like lightning rods, and people move very quickly to make their implementation of something in particular, account abstraction, the like definition of it. But I want to talk about account abstraction just conceptually. What is account abstraction? What does that look like? And quite honestly, I feel like it's easiest to talk about it in terms of what it enables. But before we get started, I just want you to take your implementation kind of conceptions about account abstraction and just kind of like wipe them from your mind. And we're going to talk about Flow's implementation of account abstraction and what that looks like. So what is account abstraction? As I mentioned, it feels like it's easier to talk about account abstraction in terms of what it enables, but generally it's like this, it makes the representation and functionality of an account on, in our case, a blockchain protocol level account abstraction. It makes it more flexible. You can add logic to it. Really, you're decoupling this idea of like verifying a transaction and the transaction execution enabled by this, the abstraction of what an account actually is represented as. So of course, we're all here to learn about it, but why is this a buzzword? Why is this something that's worth knowing about and fundamentally implementing into your applications and leveraging for your end users? I just want to start off by saying that, like, first off, in general, in terms of Flow accounts, there's only one kind of account. When you're dealing with an account on Flow, you are dealing with an account that implements account abstraction, and it's done at the protocol level. So what that means is, for you, real simply, like the consequence of that is that you only have to deal with one type of account. You're not dealing with an EOA. You're not dealing with a smart contract wallet or account, like and taking different security considerations for each, or dealing with some baggage of like not having had account abstraction implemented in a blockchain, and now suddenly it's coming about, right? This is Flow has had account abstraction solved and implemented since day one. So you're only dealing with one type of account. And with that, you have so many different user-friendly features that are possible by that being the case, right? A couple that you've probably heard before: arbitrary weight multisig, right? And we'll talk a little bit about what that means. Support for alternative signature algorithms. So, with quantum resistant signature algorithms increasingly becoming more important, right? The ability to kind of like swap out the signature algorithm that you're using for the keys on an account and being able to use to verify a transaction. That will be important. That also enables, right? You may want to implement signing using a device's secure enclave, and those secure enclaves might have different signature algorithms, and so being able to swap that out is really useful. Of course, with that, you have social recovery schemes that become possible, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the context of arbitrary weight multisigs. On Flow specifically, what you have is an account that, of course, has an address, of course, allows for state transition, but the way that Flow accounts are structured is such that you have storage within this account object. So how do you access the things that are stored inside of that account? Well, you have some sort of like address and namespacing. Yesterday, Jacob and Andrea did a great job of introducing y'all to Cadence, and we found out that Cadence is a resource-oriented programming language. And those resources are basically objects that are guaranteed to exist unless they've been destroyed, and two, are unique, right? But they need to be stored somewhere. So they're stored in your account and pathed similarly to how you would store a file or a folder inside of your computer. Right. And so a couple of different things that come along with that are, with that namespacing, you have publicly and privately accessible, basically objects inside of your account. You can expose a subset of functionality on one of these stored resources, somewhere where anyone would be able to retrieve them, or privately where you can issue them to people as you wish. Right. And so I guess just kind of like stopping here, because laundry listing a whole bunch of different user-friendly features. What's the consequence of this? Things like social recovery schemes. Like if you're building an application, imagine how big Facebook would have gotten if, the first couple users, when they forgot their password, they lost their account forever, right? Building with something like protocol native account abstraction, like that means that your end users, have access to these sorts of functionality, like by default. This is like just completely by default. And so your end users will be significantly more, one, secure, and two, happier if they know that they're able to access these things. Going off of capabilities, right? The ability to define resources or like constructs and then modularly add them onto your account means that basically anything that you can conceptualize as something you would like to be added to an account, you can deploy to your account. So some like concrete implementations of this would be like a delayed effect account recovery, right? Maybe I want to have full access to my account, but in the event something happened to me, I want some people to be able to like reassign my key. But maybe I want to have 24 hours before that takes effect, and I can allowing me to veto. Another option would be like petty cache, like setting an allowance for how much someone can spend from my vault, and then issuing that to someone that I want to be able to spend, maybe up to 50 flow or something like that. But it's coming fundamentally from the same vault that I'm using to pay for transactions or to rent storage. Cool. So a couple others here. Code storage on accounts. We'll see what the account object actually looks like. You can deploy code to your account. You have storage, of course, and namespacing for objects as well as code. And sponsored transactions, right? Again, going back to the example of a big Web 2 application, like how many applications would be as big as they are, like Twitter or Facebook, if you had to pay even like 10 cents to be able to like your friend's post? I don't think many people would tolerate that these days. multi-signature transactions, and I guess I'll just skip through to account linking that we're going to be building up to. That to me, in my mind, is like that feels like the eventual end, like the inevitable end of implementing this account linking, which is account abstraction, which is we're trying to create not just equal user experience to that which exists already in Web 2, but also like enhancing that with the stack that we have that's possible on Flow. So account linking we're going to talk a little bit more about in the future, but like basically just imagine that you have your wallet managed account, and to that wallet managed account you have any other account that's associated with applications you're engaging with, and you can access any of the assets within those app custodied accounts from your wallet, just as you would access anything that's actually inside of your wallet account. We'll talk about what that is and why that's game changing. So I guess we'll stop here in a couple slides just for some questions. But before we do, I just want to go over like a very simple representation of what an account looks like on Flow. Your account on Flow, as you'd expect, has an address, has a balance, a Flow balance. The Flow is the native token of Flow, and you use that to pay for transactions, and you use that to basically rent storage. You're going to have keys that are active on the account. These keys again can be arbitrarily weighted, and then you'll have a space for contracts and a place for storage. There's going to be public and privately accessible, basically paths on your account on Flow. But this is fundamentally what we'll be diving into a little bit more hands-on, and I'll be kind of in that process exposing you to some tools that allow you to inspect what an account looks like, mainnet, testnet, on your local net. Cool. So what do I mean real quick by weighted key schemes? Signing weights, like if you're going to sign a transaction on Flow, the weight of the signing keys needs to add up to 1,000. So a couple of examples of what that would look like: you have a 2 of 3 multi-sig. Well, you have 3 keys on the account, each of them weighted 500. You take 2 of those, you get 1,000, and that's an authorizing that's an authorized transaction. You could similarly have, for example, 2 full weight keys. Why would I want to do that? Well, maybe I want to have different keys for each device I have my account active on. Maybe I want a key that's on my laptop for my Flow account, and I want a key that's on my phone. And if I lose my phone, I could revoke my phone's access to my account, but still maintain access on one of my devices. Alternatively, you could have a 3 of 3. Basically any combination. We all know fractions. So what's really awesome to me about this is that you can also do any combination of these. So if I want, for example, a key on each of my devices, but I also want social recovery, I could have a full weight key on each of my devices and give people that I trust partial weight keys, so that if something were to happen to my key, I lost access for some reason, they could reassign my key and recover my account. So this obviously gives you the potential for like account recovery mechanisms, but this is also really helpful for like organizations with maybe role-based access or across device access, as I mentioned. It's just in general like a good practice for Flow accounts. There's a reason why people with lots of funds have use multi-sig. So I guess I'll stop here before we go into hands-on. We're about 15 minutes in, and just try to address any questions. Let's see if I have any that are coming in the chat. Let's see. When I think of account abstraction, I know I think of paying gas and non-native tokens, transaction sponsorships. Yep. Things like multi-calls. Yep. Yeah. So I guess that's a bit of what I didn't cover, and maybe I take for granted, honestly, working on Flow primarily. But you do have the ability to sponsor transactions. Actually, I think there's a custodial service, Blockto, that like sponsors transactions. So like, as I mentioned, if you're building an application and you are allowing users to kind of like come and onboard with their wallet, they're probably not going to want to engage with your application if they have to pay, and they're not familiar with crypto. If you talk to a crypto native, paying gas is like, just a part of the game, and just kind of comes with the territory. But anyone who's not familiar with crypto is probably not going to want to pay to, play a game necessarily. They're free to play. There's is a model for a variety of different platforms. And I guess with respect to multi-calls, basically what I consider like rich transactions or cross contracts transactions atomized into a single transaction is that is entirely possible on Flow. And actually, I think I could probably show some examples if we do have time. But that does mean that you can codify a transaction however you would like with however many account objects you would like to interact with. And for example, transfer 10 NFTs from 10 different collections in a single transaction, if that's something that you want to do, so long as the logic enables it and you have the NFTs and all that stuff. Cool. So I think that's pretty much any of the questions here. But I'll go from here. I do have a QR code up. This repo that I'll be walking through is I'll probably update it over the next couple of days, but it will have access to everything that I'm about to walk through here. As I show, I definitely learned best by doing. So I hope that is helpful here. Now, yesterday we did talk about Jacob went over the playground. I still love and use the playground, but I really appreciate having like a local environment set up, having my own little local net configured as well. So let me just get my bearings here and see where we're going to start. So what are we going to start with? We are going to start with account creation. All right, so we're going to progressively walk through from account creation to contract deployment to, all right, now that I have this contract deployed, what does that enable me to do with my account? What kind of functionality can I have that's available to me and available to others publicly? And once we get a feeling for like capabilities, we'll work up to the point where now what does this mean for my ability to issue or delegate access to my underlying account via capabilities? So first step, baby step, we got to create an account. I'm going to show you real quick the transaction to create an account, and it's pretty simple, right? I guess I could actually even just take all of this out. I'll make this a bit larger. So this transaction we're going to execute takes a signing auth account. An auth account is that object that I showed you that has an address and a balance and storage and space for contracts. And it's going to create a new account object. And it's going to, we're going to fund that new account with just a little tiny fraction of flow that's going to enable storage and paying for first transactions, right? Now, we can't necessarily access this account unless we add a key that we custody. So that's basically what we do is when we run this transaction, we pass this public key string and we construct a key from it and we add that key to an account. As I mentioned, there's support for different signature algorithms. So here we label that and label the hash algorithm. And of course, we have to add a weight for the key. And this is going to be a fully weighted key. Adding a key is just as simple. Basically, just you forego the account creation part and just add the key to the signer. So what does this look like? How do I run this transaction? Well, I need to start up my local net. And the way I do that is, and it's linked, the installation instructions for what's called Flow CLI will be linked. And basically I have to start up my emulator. And there we go. Cool. So I see a couple of initial like core contract deployments, and I see that I'm listening on ports, and I know I'm good to go. So what I'm going to do, and again, all steps are in the README here. I'm going to create. First, I'm going to create what I consider a Genesis account, and what that means is, again, if we look at this transaction, in order to create an account on Flow, you have to basically have already an account that's on Flow. These accounts are account objects, and so we need an account that already exists on chain to initiate the transaction that will create this new account. So let's go ahead and do that. We could do that really easily on Flow CLI, Flow accounts. create, and I'm just going to name this Genesis on my emulator. Cool. And I'm going to select emulator. You could see you could use the Flow CLI to create an account on Flow on testnet and mainnet as well. And cool. So we've got our account that's been created. Now we can go ahead and submit this transaction that creates an account. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate a public-private key pair, as I mentioned, and I actually have one. I have one prepared. In order to create that account, I also have to have some flow. So I'm going to first, excuse me here while I look through my giant README. I'm just going to go ahead and run a transaction that transfers some flow to that Genesis account that we just created. Transactions send, and that's going to be transactions, flow, account creation, and we're going to transfer some flow. And of course, we need the address that we're going to transfer that to, and the amount. I'm just going to go ahead and do 10 flow. If you don't know already, transactions on flow are relatively cheap, so you really don't need much. Storage is also, excuse me here, I put my parameters in the wrong order. There we go. And so we went ahead and deposited flow token to our Genesis account. And now what we can do is initiate that transaction that will create our account creation. And we're going to go to create account. The public key that I'm going to use has already been generated. Again, it's in this README. Let's see here. Give me just a minute here. Sorry about that. Here we go. All right. So hazards of a live demo, I guess. Here we go. So what I'm doing is I'm executing the transaction that I had showed you here to create the new account, and then I'm signing as that Genesis account. Okay. Here we go. All right. All right. So what did we do? We went ahead and we created this account, and we added a key to it. We could see a number of different events that were emitted, including that an account key was added, an account was created. So great. How do we go ahead and use this account? First thing I need to do is just add this to my configuration. I'm going to add this to my configuration, and I have my corresponding private key here and the address of the account that I created. And if I want to, I can actually go and get this account as well. So if I say flow accounts get the address, it will give me the public key that I just added. But using the Flow CLI is not really all that intuitive. One, and two, it's pretty hard to inspect just doing everything through a CLI. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you how we can visually inspect accounts on your local net as well as testnet and mainnet with this tool called FlowView. And what this enables you to do is it allows you to basically walk through all the aspects of an account that you would want to inspect. So we could search for this. Right now, this is connected to my emulator, my local net. And we could see the initial balance of flow. We could see the key that's active on that. We could see the weight of that key, the signature algorithm, etc., things like that. As I mentioned, you have a spot in your account for storage. For storage, and that's, again, namespaced, similar to how you would find paths in your computer. So what does that look like? Well, we can take a look. Every account on Flow has a Flow token vault created, and that's basically a special resource that must exist in order for you to rent storage and pay for transactions. We can also show a little bit of detail on that and see, well, what's my balance on here. So make that a little bit larger so you all can see. You can see that it's namespaced at basically the address /storage/flow token vault. And we have this resource that's stored here at that path with these attributes. As I also mentioned, we can expose publicly and privately accessible, like what are termed capabilities that you can retrieve that target this underlying resource. Right now, you would imagine you don't want people to be able to withdraw from your vault publicly. So there are these different interfaces that are implemented in that vault resource. I think Jacob went over this a bit yesterday. That are implemented in that vault resource, but you can expose as like a subset of functionality publicly and of course privately. So this is the balance interface that's exposed at the public/flow token balance path. And you also have a receiver, which, well, I don't mind if anyone deposits to my Flow vault. So anyone can deposit to my Flow vault via this receiver, again, namespaced at public/flow token receiver. So I hope that gets the point across. There's a spot for contracts that we'll dip into here in just a minute. But you can also see any contracts that are deployed to an account. So if you were to go to flowview.app and search for an address, you'd be able to do this for any account on mainnet. And similarly, if you go to flowview.app, you can also basically change the subdomain. So cool. So now we know we created an account. We've added a key. It's automatically configured with our Flow token vault. You can add things to this storage and then expose these public and private capabilities, either for your use or for the use of other people. So how do we do that? I guess before I dive in, I should probably go ahead and check for any questions here. Right. So how is a Flow account created, different from a transaction to create an account? That's a good question. Flow accounts create is just a command for Flow CLI, and basically it takes. So when I run that transaction, I'm doing so manually to create that account. I'm giving it a public key, and I am telling the transaction, "Hey, add this, create an account." Fund the creation and add this public key. Flow accounts create is just a Flow CLI command to basically do that with a newly generated public private key pair. And it's just really for convenience when you're kind of deving. And it will automatically add that new account to your Flow config. So pretty slick, very helpful. But it's fundamentally doing the same exact thing as the transaction that we ran. It's just kind of abstracting away some of the complexity for you. Another question here. I think the transaction is a way to create an account for a user that is account abstracted, right? The creator can contribute to pay their gas, whereas the CLI create, actually, right. Whereas the CLI creates an entirely fully new account where you can't really do anything if you don't have a Flow token. Thanks. So let's see. Also missed a question here. Does Flow Foundation give grants to builders for transaction sponsorship? So I guess to answer that more generally, there are grants available through Flow Foundation. I believe it's being revamped, but there is a spot in the GitHub. It's not coming to mind offhand, but if you follow up with me, definitely go to the Flow repo, github.com/onflow. You can look for the repository, search for like grants, and basically you could find the grants process there. And grants go out for anything from developer tooling to products to you name it, for communities, DAOs, etc. So that's definitely something to look out for, and basically just like an incentive to build awesome stuff on Flow. Cool. So I think that answers the questions that I might have missed. All right, so we created an account. How do I define like my own resources here? So I'm going to I'm going to show you the transaction actually to deploy an account, or I'm sorry, deploy a contract to an account. So first things first, what we're going to do is I've created a contract here just for demonstration that's super simple. And let's expand this here. And we just have a contract foo. And inside of that, we have a resource bar. I'm just going to collapse this because I guess the implementation isn't really all that interesting, but it has a getter and a setter. Again, foo contract has a resource bar and it has a getter and a setter. The getter is a part of the bar public interface. As I mentioned with the flow token vault, I only want someone to be able to maybe access my balance or deposit, but I don't want them to withdraw. The setter for bar, that's going to be something for me. And then we'll have this getter view function that we can expose via this bar public interface as a subset to just simply get a greeting. And then our bar resource will just contain this greeting. Cool. So that's great. We've defined this stuff, but like, how do we actually set up a bar resource and then deploying account? Well, we have this initialization scope. We're going to go ahead and set any contract fields, and we're also going to create a new bar resource, and we're going to save that into the contracts accounts storage path. As I mentioned, also, we're going to expose like a publicly accessible getter method via this par public interface at a public path, and that's going to target the bar that we've created in the previous line at the storage path. So let's see what this looks like. I'm going to use another flow CLI command, and let me just go ahead and I'm going to actually add it to my my flow config. And what do I need to do for that? Well, I just need to name the account I'm going to deploy the contract to. That's going to be foo-emulator, and Copilot already has it down. Foo emulator is going to deploy foo, and I just tell the config, look at that. Here's where you could find foo under my contracts. So returning back to foo, I'm going to, with my emulator still running, flow deploy. And there are a couple failures, but we can see that foo was successful. And if we go and again get that account, flow accounts get, we could see that there is a contract in fact deployed. But again, to just make things easy on ourselves, we could just go back to flow view into that account view and look at that. We have a contract foo. And getting back down to like the contract name spacing, you have the account address .foo. Now, I think this is actually pretty awesome because this means that you can like modularize and add functionality to your account. So if we go into our stored items, we're now going to find foo bar. And if we click on that to expand and show detail, we can see, look at that, the greeting that we initialized in bar is saved. And if we go into our public items, we could see there should be a public item. Let's refresh. Yeah, there we go. Foo bar is targeting that which is in storage, the foo bar resource, and we have this bar public resource. So, all right, cool. Now that's great, but like, what if I want to get that greeting via a script? Now, scripts are basically just queries that we can run. So I'm going to execute a script, flow scripts execute, and that's going to be in my scripts, and that's going to be under foo, and that's going to be get greeting, and there we go. We can see that our query was returned, and we got return hello world, just like we saw inside of the actual resource when we expanded the detail. So as the owner of this bar, so now the bar resource, the foo contract is deployed to my account. The bar resource is stored in my account with a public capability, and owning that resource allows me the option to mutate the state of that bar resource, right? Because I own it, it's stored in my account. So let's go ahead and change the state of that bar resource. We're going to go ahead and update the greeting for that. So I'm going to send a transaction, flow transaction send, and that's going to be in my transactions, and that's going to be under foo, and that's going to be under set greeting. And I'm going to set my greeting as, well, let's just say hello universe. So I want to be all encompassing with my greeting, and I want to assign that as foo emulator, which is basically you're going to be signing with that 1000 way key for the account that we've labeled in our configuration, and this should go through. Cool. We see a couple of events went through. These are, you can label events. You can define events to be emitted under certain conditions inside of your contract, and the Flow CLI will emit those for you when you execute the transaction, and we could see that the greeting was set, and we got the greeting. So if we go back to the FlowView app and we refresh and we look at that foo bar, we should see that the state change was executed. Again, transactions enable state change, scripts enable querying for you to be able to access those things. So basically, if we were to just run that query again, flow scripts execute get greeting, we're going to get back that new greeting because we executed the state change. Now, great. So now, so far, what we've done is we've created an account, we've added a key, we've deployed a contract. I guess I'll stop here and see if there are any additional questions here. Looks like that's, yeah, looks like no questions so far. So I hope that this is at least following so far. It looks like there aren't any questions at the moment. Why don't we go ahead and look at let's look at another contract that I just put together here. Let's see. Awesome, a bunch of capabilities yesterday. So, well, awesome. What we can do is just take a look at. We mentioned, and this is often mentioned as like as a benefit of account abstraction, is that you can do things like, oh, well, with account abstraction, you're able to like set limits on like how much someone can withdraw, and using capabilities enabled by account abstraction, you're able to codify a contract, right? So this is a petty cash contract. You have an allowance recipient, and as you might imagine, an allowance has like a limit and tracking withdrawn, and then the capability to withdraw tokens from an underlying fungible token vault. You can give that allowance capability to someone. In our case, we're going to give that to a recipient and configured in some other account, and that will now allow the recipient to basically withdraw fungible tokens. So I guess I just want to point this out, not so much because the contract is like super hyper relevant to account abstraction, but because this is a use case that like I've often seen quoted for other implementations of account abstraction that you're able to implement and add on as a module onto your account just by deploying, with the ability to deploy a contract to your account. And what is that, 160 lines of code with a a bunch of comments. This is stuff that you're able to do on Flow, and all because of the account abstraction model. Now you could, again, implement any other sorts of schemes like delayed key reattribution, et cetera, things like that. Cool. So give me just a minute here. I'm going to go into presenter view again, and let's see view. Cool, no questions so far. So what I'm going to do is I will go ahead and dip into from here, since it looks like you all covered capabilities quite a bit yesterday. Seems like you're all getting the allowance and contract deployment. I want to go into like conceptually account linking, right? So from a conceptual level, what does it mean to link an account, and why is that even important? Well, to understand like the solution that account linking is presenting, I think it's really helpful to understand the problem. And many of you may even be familiar with this already. Right, in a world where you have self custody or a custodial model, you can create an application for your users that fully abstracts away the blockchain and the transactions that they're executing when they're interacting with your on-chain application. You can do that, and what does that solve? Well, that solves the problem that's created by self-custody. You have the benefits of app custody, or that a user can come with their typical Web 2 rails, log in via Google or Twitter or social auth, and they're able to access your application without needing to go and like pre-configure like a wallet, which will definitely negatively affect your user activation. The problem is that the only way that your users can interact with the NFTs or the in-game assets, et cetera, in your application are facilitated through your app. So you're basically, in doing that, creating this brilliant onboarding experience, but you're dooming your assets to live their lives in this walled garden. The alternative being self-custody, but again, that creates its own problems where, how many people already have a crypto wallet and how many people want to play a game where they're signing for a transaction all the time. Not very many people would be willing to do that. So how do you enable the benefits of app custody, where you can abstract away all the interactions with the chain, and also allow the assets that you use to build your application to jump that walled garden and like go and play interoperably and composably in the rest of the ecosystem? You're right. There's any number of different benefits that you can get from enabling that. Your users will be able to, applications may pop up like of course marketplaces are like a simple use case, right? Being able to sell and trade NFTs, use NFTs and in-app assets as like collateral for loans, like just stuff that like is just not possible in like Web 2, right? This is the stuff that we all know and love and familiar with in Web 3, but we want to bring it to the masses, and unlock that for our users. So the solution is fundamentally account linking, right? You maintain access of and custody of this nice little managed account inside of your application, and then you give the self-custody account, the user's wallet, a capability that allows them access to the in-app assets. So your application still just focuses on creating a brilliant user experience, onboarding experience, etc. But the user can go back to their wallet. They can access their in-game assets. They can access their just general in-app assets, and they're able to take those assets with them wherever they go, just like the assets are inside of their wallet themselves, right? And this is all fundamentally to like not just build applications that are like user friendly, but empower users even more than they're already accustomed to being, without the friction and without the barriers that come with this binary custodial model, right? A simple example, right? I was at an event and someone was giving out POAPs. I went to the POAP application, and you have to download it, and you have to sign in with MetaMask, and you have to authenticate with your wallet, basically. But if you're putting together an event that's just a speech, or an event that you're putting together, a party, whatever, how many of your friends that you know are actually going to have a wallet pre-configured? How many of them will go through the trouble of creating a wallet so that they can get that simple POAP? It's much more frictionless to just, hey, give me your phone number, we'll send you a verification code, and your phone will just like paste it in there for you, and boom, you're on your way. You have your proof of attendance. On Flow, I guess that would be floats. So that's the general idea. And of course, we want them to experience the benefits. And so I guess this can kind of be conceptualized, instead of being like this binary custodial model, as being hybrid custody model, where your app is able to facilitate awesome interactions, and the user still has like self-sovereign ownership. How does this work in practice? Just a very simple diagram. You could find more docs on this at the developer docs, developers.flow.com. But basically, your application maintains custodial access of some account, and your user, of course, through their wallet, has a self-custody wallet, and they have custodial access of their primary account. And your application issues them a set of like restricted access on the account. So what would that look like? Maybe you have a Web3 game, and your Web3 game has and like a deck that's represented as NFTs. Well, you allow the user access to that account via that collection, that NFT collection. And you can actually Floaty was like instrumental in developing this and like kind of like catalyzing the community in the development of this like account linking and custodial model. And they've enabled that kind of functionality as well. So I know we're about 15 minutes out. Let me just check to see if there's any questions. Right. So this is a good question. Let's see. What is the unique use case of Flow blockchain compared to other blockchain networks? I would say, well, first off, like, what is a use case for very inexpensive transactions that parallelize and with protocol native account abstraction? Like, that's difficult for me to answer because I feel like there's so many different use cases that are really like a sum of like really competitive advantages. One of them we just went over, account abstraction. You're able, like, what would be the advantage for you as an application developer for your users to have account abstraction natively? What would be the advantage for you individually as a developer to only have to deal with one type of account on the blockchain that you're working with? Like that to me seems like that's pretty huge. And if I'm building an application for mainstream, that would be a must-have, right? My users have to be able to recover their accounts. My users have to be able to understand. My users cannot be burdened with the problem of having to keep something secret. Like I wouldn't trust my grandma or my parents to manage that, let alone like myself, right? So that's a very seriously differentiating factor that I don't know is like fully appreciated. But I hope I've been able to build a case for. And then there's also other advantages like the architecture allows for efficient throughput and various things like that, right? So I feel, having worked on Flow for a little over a year, that it's, as far as I'm concerned, like very easy to build on compared to other chains once you get accustomed to the tooling and kind of the programming language as well. A secret alpha on what types of projects to focus on for this hackathon. What kind of alpha can I give? Well, one, I don't have very much alpha to give to begin with, but I will say, implementing any unique use case for account linking is definitely going to stand out. Definitely focusing on and thinking about your application from like a customer-centric perspective. So like, what does that mean? Well, I don't know, making it as user-friendly as you possibly can. Like, forget for a second that your user cares that they're interacting with a DApp. Like, fundamentally, users are only going to care that what they're using improves their lives in some way and that they benefit from. And that's also like convenient and frictionless because building an application is like this competitive. Examples that I can give to inspire a unique account linking use cases. I would say, definitely check out some of the previous hackathon projects. Flow Hackathon Season 1, Season 2. I think it's on like Devfolio. Definitely check those out. Some of the use cases that I've thought about, I've mostly mentioned here. Being able to do like role-based security. So like, for example, the petty cache, that's a contract that you'll have access to in the repo. being able to set an allowance. Maybe you set that allowance like on a monthly basis. Maybe that allowance is actually like a subscription. Which on-chain subscriptions look like when you incorporate account linking. This is all like kind of like riffing off the top of my head, but like having a subscription service that a user could log into very easily with social authentication or like text message authentication, and allotting them a certain amount of like app credits every month, and then that resets so long as their payment goes through. And then that subscription could be for any number of things. There are subscription boxes in real life. Why can't there be subscription boxes for NFTs? And actually following on to the question that just came in, if you build from a customer centric mindset, you're inevitably going to go into the territory of mobile. So many people spend so much time on their phones, and it's, at this point, very expected that an application someone's engaging with either has an accompanying application or only exists on iOS or Android. So I think account linking is extremely powerful for the mobile use case, because it's not that big of a deal to verify when a wallet authorization pops up on your browser. But when you're switching applications in your iPhone or in your Android device, like that's a lot of friction, and most people are not going to tolerate that even one time. So if you can abstract away all of the on-chain interactions behind your beautifully created application on a device, and still enable a user access to the assets that you're engaging with inside of your application via their wallet, then that to me is the real game changer. And that, I guess, is in my mind what like the next gen UX is trusted applications that abstract away all the complexity of dealing with the blockchain. Users maybe don't even know that they're doing that, and still those that are savvy enough to know, or curious enough to find out, link their accounts and then have all of this interoperability unlocked. What you do is you turn your product, like, I guess this is more of like a high level concept, but like you turn your product that's from just the product to a platform via an NFT collection that allow anyone to access anywhere. Why can't I create a game with it? Why can't I wrap that in some, fractionalization and fractionalize the NFT? Like all of this stuff that's possible on chain suddenly is enabled for the assets that I'm facilitating in my application without me having to do anything, because of the nature of, in particular, Flow's permissionlessly interoperable, composable nature. Friend tech. That's, hey, friend tech on Flow, Flow tech. I don't know, what would you call that? Cool. Looks like someone already played with the Walletless Arcade. I don't know how much time we do have, but about 7 minutes here. If you haven't, I would definitely recommend going through. It's, I can talk about walletless onboarding and account linking, but it's another thing entirely to experience it. And so this Walletless Arcade is something that we created. Let's do a demo. All right. So welcoming you to Flow Arcade. Basically, as I mentioned, you have an NFT. Why not create a game around it? So we're going to go ahead and start. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first log in. This is dangerous for a live demo, so we're being risky here. Cool. So let's go ahead and authenticate. Look at that. I authenticated with my Google account. I have no idea I'm interacting with the blockchain, except that I've just been told. So I need to purchase an NFT. I'm going to buy now. We're just going to go ahead and mock Stripe. That's the other beautiful thing about account abstraction. You can add layers on top of it that will enable you to to pay with fiat. So I'm going to buy this NFT in particular. I'm just going to go ahead and geo at flow.com. That's not actually my email, but my contact info is on the slides. If you do want to contact me, I'm going to 0123. That's in the past. So let's see, 123 is CVC, and my name for now, it's just going to be John Smith, and my zip code is conveniently 12345. I'm going to pay, and let's see what happens. So now I have an NFT, and that NFT will enable me to play rock, paper, scissors. I'm going to play rock, and my opponent, who's there is a smart contract that's powering all of this. My opponent is going to randomly select their move using on-chain randomness. They unfortunately chose the same as me, and so I'm going to play again. Let's see how many rounds it takes for me to win here. Notice that I'm not signing any transactions. I'm just playing the game as it's presented to me. There's a little bit of lag because this is running on testnet. But you could imagine you could add some creative, really super thrilling cinematic animations here. I lost. Unfortunately, I'm not very good at rock, paper, scissors here. But the other really cool thing about this is that the state is tracked on chain, so I can see my wins and losses and my ties. Get good. Yeah, I know. I keep playing rock. That's so far been my that's typically how I win in person. But man, okay. Well, I'm going to spoil it here. At some point, you win. At some point, you win, and you get some tickets. I've played this before, and so what I can do with those tickets is basically pretty limited inside of this walletless arcade. I really can't do anything. It's just some tickets that are fungible tokens that I got, right? I'm going to connect with Lilico, and give me just a minute here because I need to get my password where I think this is it. Let's see. Wrong password. Nice. Core wallet. There we go. Let's see. And let's unlock. And unfortunately, I hazards of a live demo. Let's see. Copy password. Let's see here. There we go. Okay, cool. So what's happening here is it's in full screen. It typically would just pop up as like a little sidebar. It's going to ask for us to approve a transaction. And what that transaction is doing is it's creating that account link. So I have a wallet that's enabled with account linking, and the account that the application custodies is just giving me the ability to access the NFT inside here and the fungible token tickets. So we'll see here in a minute once this kind of finishes its thing. All right. Let's see. A question did come in. Explore building a Flow self-custody wallet with MetaMask Snap. Interesting. I think it looks like they're focusing on more Cadence dev tooling type stuff. So I guess I won't be able to do that time. Perhaps another time. I would definitely encourage I'm not involved necessarily with the hackathon judging. I just as a developer on Flow find that really interesting. Let's see. It looks like there's So what's going on here is probably that it's trying to execute the link account transaction, but because I've been to this website, it has already been linked, so it's got some error handling stuff going on. That's for me to investigate. But if you do go to this website here and you start fresh, you'll basically have access to the happy path, and you can experience it. If you like search walletless arcade or walletless onboarding on Flow, and you'll be able to find a YouTube video with a demo as well. It looks like Harding mentioned that he's not a judge, so ideas are not guaranteed. Right. Yeah, I do think the integration with MetaMask would be interesting. I think like universal wallets are probably, that's something that's interesting. It's very user centric, and would be cool to see. Anyway, if you if you do go to the Walletless Arcade demo, check it out. If you have any questions, all of my contact info is at geosanchez.xyz. You can find my GitHub, my Twitter, all that stuff. Anything related to Flow blockchain. I spend a lot of time in the Discord as well. And going back to the demo repo, you'll have access to that repo. And I did my best to set up the config and walk you through on the README as using it as kind of like a primer for using Flow CLI and setting up your local net and making sure that your config is all set up and good to go. If you have any questions with that, please, or feedback, definitely feel free to reach out to me. Looks like the recording will be up on YouTube, and that applies for anyone who's watching in the future as well. So with that, thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate you all tuning in. All right.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. If there's no more questions, we'll wrap it up. But yeah, feel free to reach out on the Discord. Feel free to reach out to Giovanni over here. And yeah, look forward to seeing what everybody builds with Flow. And yeah, thank you so much, Giovanni. And thank you, everybody, for coming.
All right. Take care, guys. Bye.